In 2022, a thriller escape room movie officially arrived. The entire film features only 3 characters, yet it creates a terrifying world trapped in an endless loop. After the female protagonist suddenly wakes from a dream, she discovers that she is locked inside a sealed room. Not only are her hands tied, but her body is also tightly restrained with iron chains. Just as she starts shouting for help, a voice suddenly comes from above.
Move the pencil.
The lights in the room instantly turn dark red. According to the instructions from the AI, the woman must complete a simple task within a set amount of time. She must use any means necessary to move the objects on the table, but the woman has no interest in completing the task. She only wants to break free from her restraints and escape this strange place. However, the AI gives her a reason she cannot ignore. If she fails to complete the task within the time limit, it will kill her young daughter. That threat immediately strikes her most vulnerable point, and she breaks down, screaming her daughter's name in despair. But the monitor in front of her suddenly changes, and a special countdown begins. After calming down for a moment, the woman decides to follow the instructions and complete the task first, then figure out what to do next. She tries to bite through the zip tie with her teeth, but it is thick and tough, making it impossible. Just as she lowers her head in despair, she happens to see her shoes. An idea comes to her. She looks up at the timer and sees there is still enough time, so she bends down and starts untying her shoelaces. Then she threads one shoelace through the zip tie on her left hand and ties it together with the other lace. After that, she begins rubbing the zip tie repeatedly using a motion similar to pedaling a bicycle. Once she finds the right method, it becomes a race against time. After quite a while, the zip tie is finally worn through. After a brief moment of excitement, the woman quickly grabs the shoe from the floor. She glances at the timer and realizes that the cubes in the countdown are disappearing faster and faster. The woman holds one shoe and pulls out the other, but the shoelaces are still not long enough. With only seconds left, she decides to take a desperate gamble and throws the shoe directly. Fortunately, at the very last moment, it hits the pencil. After successfully completing the task, the lights change from dark red back to normal. Just as the woman lifts her head to speak, her body is suddenly shocked by electricity and she falls unconscious. Soon after, the woman falls into a dream and sees the daughter she longs for, happily playing on the beach. The woman joyfully talks with her and slowly lies down on the soft sand. However, good dreams never last long. When she wakes up, her daughter has already disappeared. Seeing that the machine AI is silent, the woman begins examining the surrounding environment. The lights on the wall cannot be touched. They give off a faint electric shock. The metal chair on the floor is firmly fixed in place. She stands on the chair and reaches toward the ceiling, but finds no way to break through. Meanwhile, a plate containing some colored food has appeared on the table, with a spoon placed beside it. She gently scoops up a spoonful and hesitates for a moment before putting it into her mouth, only to discover that it tastes surprisingly good. She quickly scoops up a second spoonful and begins devouring the food. Soon, the entire plate is completely empty, but after finishing, she looks down at the plate. The smooth surface reflects like a mirror, and the person in the reflection looks completely different. She stares at her exhausted appearance and can hardly believe there is now an extra scar on her right hand. She touches her hair and suddenly realizes that she may have been trapped here for a very, very long time. At that thought, she quickly throws the plate aside and steps backward repeatedly. The surrounding space is completely silent, an eerie kind of quiet. She curls up on the chair, unsure what to do, absent-mindedly touching her head. When she brushes aside her hair, she discovers a large wound on the back of her head. Panicking, the woman repeatedly questions the AI but receives no response. Helpless, she can only hold her head and cry. At that moment, an image of her daughter suddenly flashes in her mind. A moment later, the woman wakes up again. When she hears the AI speaking, she immediately begins resisting. Unless she can speak directly with her daughter, she refuses to continue the task. The AI eventually grants her request.
Baby!
Mother and daughter have a brief conversation. When she hears that her daughter wants to go home, the woman clenches her fists tightly. After the call ends, she decides to continue the task. After all, it's just moving a pencil, but as she walks forward, she discovers that the difficulty of the game has increased. The lights change, and the countdown begins. A glass wall now blocks her path. The pencil is only one step away, yet she cannot reach it. She slaps the glass with both hands, but it is completely unbreakable. Even the seam between the 2 glass panels offers no weakness. She turns around and considers smashing the glass with the chair, but the chair is firmly bolted down and cannot be moved. As the time slowly disappears, the woman looks everywhere for a solution but finds none. Holding her head in despair, she finally tries to slam her body into the glass, but the oddly soft yet hard surface bounces her straight back to the ground. With no other options, she watches the time run out while the only robot that can speak completely ignores her. Just as the countdown is about to end, the woman shouts in desperation, and unexpectedly the pencil begins to move outward. forward. With only 2 cubes remaining, the task is miraculously completed. The lights turn on, but the woman is once again knocked unconscious by an electric shock. She then falls into another dream and again sees her daughter playing on the beach. The only difference is that there is now an extra scar on her forehead. At that moment, a hand suddenly presses down on her shoulder. The woman quickly wakes up, only to find that she has been tied back to the chair, and a strange man is now standing in front of her. Without saying a word, the man lunges at her. The woman immediately bites him in defense. The man retreats in pain, shouting that his name is Roger and asking if she really doesn't remember him. The woman looks at his wedding ring, then glances at her own left hand, and finally realizes that the man in front of her is her husband. She quickly explains to him that she has gone through several rounds of trials inside this room, and their kidnapped daughter could lose her life at any moment. For her daughter's sake, she has no choice but to follow the robot's tasks, though she has no idea when it will all end. Suddenly, the robot begins speaking again. The new task is to snap the pencil on the table in half. Roger, who has just arrived, looks completely confused and asks a series of questions. The robot gives no explanation and simply changes the lighting. Just as Roger picks up the pencil to help complete the task, the lights suddenly turn blue and an alarm sounds, warning that only the woman is allowed to complete the task. Roger can only put the pencil down and runs over to untie his wife. But after experiencing the previous round, the woman has realized something. She believes she might be able to control objects with her mind, though she cannot explain it clearly. Meanwhile, the man keeps talking non-stop, while the woman focuses her attention on the pencil on the table. Then she angrily tells Roger to be quiet. The pencil suddenly floats in midair, snaps into 2 pieces, and falls back onto the table. The task is completed in an unbelievable way. Roger asks in astonishment what she just did, but blood begins to flow from the woman's ear, and she feels as if something is still missing. Suddenly, the familiar electric shock strikes again, knocking her unconscious. In the dream world, she unexpectedly sees her husband again, still talking endlessly as usual, but for some reason, her daughter suddenly disappears, leaving only her toys behind. The woman wakes up calling her daughter's name. Roger quickly tries to comfort her, but she suddenly feels intense pain in her head. Just as Roger checks the wound on her head, the robot releases a new task: put the ball into the bucket. Roger picks up the ball and then puts it down, and the lights change along with his actions. Based on her experience from the previous round, the woman tries to complete the task using her mind. But the ball does not move at all. Roger suddenly comes up with an idea. If they can remove all the screws from the table, they could push the table closer to her. She closes her eyes and decides to try. After focusing intensely, her finger moves slightly and the screws begin to rotate. Astonishingly, she can clearly feel it happening inside her mind. She closes her eyes again and gathers her strength. With another small movement of her finger, the screw smoothly twists out like melting chocolate. Then the second screw begins to turn, and the speed grows faster and faster. From controlling a single screw to controlling 4 at the same time, the woman becomes increasingly skilled at controlling objects with her mind. Before long, all the screws are removed. However, the table is heavy, and Roger has to push with all his strength just to move it slightly. With a small movement of her head, the table suddenly changes direction, and due to inertia, the small ball begins to roll. She focuses her mind on the ball. With the experience she gained from turning the screws, her control has clearly improved, and she successfully places the ball into the bucket. The task is completed, and the lights turn bright. After this round, the woman enters what seems like a cheat mode life. She can easily control the shape of sand, casually flip the pages of a book, and even make a glass bottle spin rapidly. Sometimes she only needs to tilt her head slightly to complete the robot's tasks. Of course, the green food plays an essential role in all of this. Soon, the escape room tasks are upgraded. A disassembled handgun appears on the table. Roger cannot help questioning the task. He cannot understand why a gun would appear. A ball, a bucket, and a shovel can all remind someone of the beach, but what possible meaning could a gun have? The woman has no time to think about it. She only wants to complete the task as quickly as possible. While talking, the two begin to disagree and soon start arguing. Strangely, the feeling of this argument seems familiar to the woman, yet their conflict only grows more intense. When Roger angrily slams the table, the woman finally explodes with rage. The parts on the table begin moving faster and faster, and soon a pistol assembles itself. However, the robot announces that the task is still not complete. Roger panics and quickly reaches for the bullets, but human hands are no match for the speed of thought. Under the woman's mental control, a bullet flies straight into the chamber. Roger praises his wife out loud, but inside he is terrified. He quickly tries to persuade her that the gun is not meant for killing each other, but the woman seems to have lost her sanity. Her eyes widen as if she could devour someone alive. She tilts her head slightly, and the pistol instantly fires. However, the bullet stops in midair. The woman has used her mind to stop it. When the bullet finally drops to the ground, the task is completed. The lights turn on, and after the familiar electric shock, the unconscious woman falls into another dream. Strangely, her head aches terribly, and neither Roger nor her daughter can be seen anywhere. She crouches down and discovers her husband's ring buried in the sand. After digging it out, she realizes it is attached to a severed finger. She digs a little more and uncovers her daughter's shoe. Suddenly, she falls to the ground as a massive wave of sand pours down over her body. The woman slowly wakes from the dream and sees Roger trapped inside a sealed glass box. There is an opening above the box, continuously pouring sand inside. The woman circles the box, unable to find any solution, and finally removes the chair and begins smashing the glass frantically. Facing death, Roger screams desperately, begging his wife to save him. But the glass is unbreakable, and the woman once again fails. She can only watch helplessly as her husband is buried alive by the sand. The task fails, and for the first time, the room lights up in a different color. The woman begs the robot to give her another chance, promising she will try harder next time. But the robot only repeats a single sentence. Unable to accept reality, the woman screams and blasts the robot down with her power. Soon, the door to the room opens, and several fully armed men in black walk in, pointing their guns at her. The woman slowly stands up while humming her daughter's favorite song. A bloody storm is about to begin. With a slight twist of her fingers, 3 of the men instantly collapse to the ground without any chance to fight back. The woman removes the helmet of one of them, and his face looks strangely familiar. The scene shifts, and the woman finally walks out of the escape room. The door behind her reads, "Test 0298. 5 more armed men arrive and immediately open fire on her. But the woman remains calm. A transparent barrier forms in front of her, blocking all damage. Then she begins making familiar finger gestures. After practicing repeatedly, her hand movements become increasingly elaborate. The men in black twist and fold like pieces of paper as their bodies break apart, while one unlucky man is suspended in the air. When she removes his helmet, blood immediately bursts from his eyes. With a slight motion of her finger, the man's eyeball moves through the air because the elevator ahead requires an eye scan. Soon the woman reaches the next floor. The lighting inside is different from before, and another room reads, 0927 task completed. Still confused, the woman enters the elevator again and goes up another level. When the doors open, purple lights glow outside, and she hears a man's voice nearby. As she approaches, she discovers the man is her husband Roger again, though she is no longer surprised. The man, however, seems terrified of something. He points behind him and tells the woman to look. Behind the door are several hanging bags. When open, they contain bodies that look exactly like her husband. When she opens the second door, it is filled entirely with her daughter's toys. The third door contains nothing but sand. Soon, a large group of men in black arrives, but facing the overpowered woman, they are simply walking into their own deaths. The woman seems to realize something. She uses her mind to remove one of their helmets. The two stare at each other in shock. It is Roger again. It turns out that all of the men in black are clones of Roger. After the battle ends, the woman deliberately selects one survivor and uses flowing sand to slowly pierce through his body before slamming him heavily to the ground. She continues upward. When she opens the next door, she sees only darkness. Calling her daughter's name, she walks into it. Suddenly, a beam of light shines down, and the robot's familiar voice speaks again. But this time, the robot tells her that all the tests are complete. She has perfectly completed every task, but her daughter was never here. The robot then restores the woman's lost memories. That day, mother and daughter were happily running along the beach, but over some trivial matter, the husband and wife began arguing loudly in front of their daughter. The daughter seemed used to it and simply covered her ears with her hands. During the argument, the out-of-control husband suddenly slapped his wife. Unable to fight back, the wife clenched her fists and screamed in fury, accidentally awakening a mysterious power within herself. A strange force instantly wiped out all life around her, including her own daughter. Only then does the woman remember everything from the past. The robot opens an exit, a door that will allow her to completely leave the escape room, but the woman hesitates. If she walks through that door, it means she will never see her daughter again. She looks at her daughter in the dream world with deep reluctance and sings her daughter's favorite song with her. She makes a shocking decision to return to the escape room and live forever in a consciousness where her daughter still exists. But when she wakes up again, the familiar pencil has reappeared on the table.